Have you ever realized how often you're on the edge? Tired of trying to overcome, dealing with the unexpected, fighting every stumble, and conquering yourself? You might not notice it immediately, but there's a weariness born from the constant attempt to control life. You keep setting goals, trying to be more efficient, braver, more optimistic, more balanced. You make choices, cultivate relationships, follow routines no longer suited to your life. And the more you strive, the more everything slips away, like water through fingers, as if life can't be captured. This is where an ancient concept comes in, which can indeed transform your existence, Wu-wei, a Taoist principle that Alan Watts explained as acting effortlessly. Don't be fooled into thinking it's about inaction or weakness. Wu-wei is one of the greatest expressions of wisdom and courage. It's about the ability to act in harmony with the natural flow, moving with life rather than fighting against it. Think of a dancer surrendering to the music, feeling the rhythm and letting go, or a surfer embracing each wave, learning to flow with the sea. Now reflect for a moment. How often do you try to rush what's not ready? How often do you blame yourself for not controlling what naturally cannot be controlled? How frequently do you act out of fear of losing, seeming fragile, or not achieving enough? The truth is, we were taught to challenge life's currents. Since childhood, we've heard that success comes from relentless effort, constant persistence, even when we feel it's time to stop. Thus, we grow anxious, insecure, disconnected from our essence because we never learned the art of letting go, observing, trusting. Wu-wei doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting with awareness, lightness, and respect for the natural timing of things. It's ceasing to be the worn-out rower fighting the current to become the wise navigator who adjusts sails to the wind. Alan Watts said that when you stop forcing life, the extraordinary happens. The right doors open, the right paths appear, and answers emerge. Not through effort, but because you finally created the space for it to happen. Maybe, upon hearing this now, you already know that forcing doesn't yield results. And because, deep down, you already sense the need to find a new path, one that is calmer, more authentic, more aligned with who you truly are. Within moments, you'll understand that Wu-wei is not just an enchanting philosophy. It is a practical tool, a shift in perspective that can restore what you've always chased in trying to control everything. True peace. Not the fleeting, superficial peace promised by self-help cliches, but an authentic peace that arises when we live in harmony with what is real, with our true selves, and with the lessons life presents us over time. Take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and dive into the present, for now, the journey begins. To grasp the true essence of Wu-wei, we need to go beyond beautiful words. We must venture into the foundations where this principle flourished. Taoism and Zen. I leave you with an invitation. Temporarily forget the view of philosophy as a mere accumulation of information. Tao and Zen are more than intellectual concepts. They are experiences felt in the body, soul, and the very life pulsing in you. The Tao, translated as the way, is not just a theory or a set of rules. It is the invisible force that moves all things. The sprouting of nature, the cycle of the seasons, every aspect of life, all guided by an intelligence beyond our comprehension. Lao Tzu, the master who first expressed the Tao, taught that the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. Why? Because when we try to capture life in words, it has already transcended. The Tao is like the wind. You can feel it, let yourself be carried, but never control it. Zen stems from this same understanding. When Buddhism and Taoism converged in ancient China, they gave birth to something even deeper: Zen. Zen does not seek to translate reality into words, but to remove barriers preventing direct experience. In Zen, there are no dogmas to follow, no beliefs to adopt, only the practice of being fully present. Both Taoism and Zen reveal to the human ego the same unsettling truth. You are not in control. You never were. And your attempts to maintain that control only create fractures. What they offer is not evasion, but a reconciliation with what is. A return to the trust you had as a child. A time when you played uninhibitedly, fell without embarrassment, tried without an obsession for success. However, here is where many get confused. Because these teachings, from such distinct cultures, may seem distant, almost unattainable for our Western minds shaped by logic and the relentless pursuit of achievements. It is precisely at this point that a key figure arises, someone who dedicated his life to uniting these worlds, Alan Watts. Continuing this journey, we will discover who Alan Watts was and how he made these invisible wisdoms accessible to us, demonstrating that Tao and Zen are not exotic luxuries, but profound necessities for truly living in a fragmented world. Prepare to meet the man who connected Eastern and Western worlds and who can also open a new door within you. If what you are hearing resonates with you, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel to follow more content like this. We appreciate your support. There was a time when concepts like Tao, Zen, Wu-wei, and meditation were viewed with suspicion by the West, seen as eccentricities of distant cultures with little relevance to the pace of modern life. It was in this context that Alan Watts emerged, not as just another academic, nor as a dogmatic promoter of Eastern philosophy, but as a true alchemist of ideas, someone who managed to transfer not just the words, but the spirit of these ancient traditions to an audience who, lost in their own speed and logic, began to spiritually suffer without noticing. Alan Watts was not a cloistered theorist. He was a bold thinker, a questioner of Western certainties. He understood that the greatest challenge to understanding Tao and Zen did not arise from cultural difference, but from fear. The fear our rational mind has of losing control, surrendering the illusion of total dominion over existence. Watts didn't want to impose doctrines. He wanted to free people from the burden of dogmas, the tyranny of goals, the obsession with achievements. His mission was to show that what we incessantly seek, peace, fulfillment, meaning, is not in the heroic struggle to control the world, but in the silent courage to let the world be. He did this with charming lightness. His lectures didn't carry the heavy tone of authority, but the fluidity of someone speaking from lived experience. Alan Watts didn't offer ready-made formulas. He challenged questions, removed masks, invited people to stumble upon their own concepts, so that in the open space that arose, something true could be felt. He knew that Tao and Zen could not be reached with just logic. Therefore, he told stories. He used simple and powerful metaphors, like the river that naturally flows, the sailor who sails with the wind, to convey the wisdom that Eastern civilizations silently cultivated for centuries. Watts said that life is like music. The objective is not to reach the end of the composition as quickly as possible. It is to dance with it, feeling each note and beat without hurry, without anxiety. And that's exactly what we forget, that life is not a race. It is a dance. And that Wu-wei, the art of not forcing, is the melody that's always been playing but many haven't yet learned to hear. Alan Watts challenged a generation to reconsider their deepest beliefs about what it means to live well. He knew that as long as we continued trying to triumph in life, we'd inevitably be doomed to lose it. His message resonates to this day because he didn't just talk about ancient philosophies. He discussed invisible wounds we all carry, modern loneliness, existential anxiety, the disconnection with the present. But Watts also knew that understanding this intellectually is not enough. Knowing Wu-wei is useless if you continue rowing against the current in practice, and that is precisely what we will explore next. How the metaphor of the river, so central in the thinking of Alan Watts, reveals the root of our suffering and, at the same time, the path to true freedom. Prepare to contemplate your own life from a new perspective. Close your eyes for a moment and visualize a river. A vast river, with a powerful flow carrying everything in its path. Stones, leaves, logs, fish, the very earth. Now imagine a person immersed in this river, desperately fighting against the current. Every movement is a battle. Every attempt to advance is frustrated. The body tires, muscles tense, the mind despairs, and the more they fight, the further they are from any true peace. This is the image Alan Watts used to describe human suffering. The metaphor of the river is not just captivating, it is painfully true. It shows that the suffering we experience in life is rarely caused by the circumstances themselves. Almost always, suffering arises from our resistance to what is. You lose a job, a relationship ends, a plan fails, and instead of accepting reality and finding your flow, you cling to what has passed, while trying to hold on to what inevitably slips away like fine sand through fingers. Watts emphasized that life, like a river, has its own course and intelligence. It's not necessary to force or attempt to control it. Just learn to trust its natural rhythm. This does not mean accepting everything passively. It's about acting in harmony with forces beyond our control. Think of a surfer reading the waves, not to dominate them but to harmonize with them. Fighting against reality creates tension. This tension builds up in the body, mind, and spirit, leading to a constant state of conflict with life, with others, and with oneself. The result is not surprising. Anxiety, frustration, resentment, a feeling of powerlessness. And the most painful part is that, on some level, you know you're sinking. But the fear of letting go is greater than the fear of continuous suffering. However, the metaphor of the river brings a subtle promise that there is a different way to live, a way that does not require incessant struggle. By relinquishing control, you do not lose yourself, but rediscover yourself. By stopping resistance, you realize the river of life is your ally, taking you to destinations your mind could never conceive. This requires courage to trust the unknown and let go of the illusion of controlling security. And this trust is not a spiritual whim, but an urgent necessity in a world that teaches us from an early age to compete and dominate. That's what we'll explore next. How Western culture has created an invisible prison of control and effort, and how this mentality is silently destroying us from within. Get ready to discover the true source of your exhaustion and what needs to change so you can finally live fully. You were conditioned to believe that everything you want to achieve requires constant effort, intense sacrifice, total control. From a young age, you heard phrases like, "Don't give up. Whoever wants it, makes it happen. The world belongs to the strong." You grew up believing that without fighting, planning, or forcing, something bad would happen. This belief created an invisible prison within you, a prison of relentless tension, of fear masked as ambition, of anxiety covered by determination. Alan Watts saw this clearly. He noticed that the West, by exalting effort and control, built a neurotic society where people are always running without knowing where to, where doing is more valued than being, where every pause is viewed with suspicion, as if doing nothing were a threat or mistake. We live in a world that adores excesses, whether of productivity or goals. Life becomes an endless project that needs managing and maximizing. And in this senseless race for control, you drift further away from yourself, becoming a stranger in your own life. Have you noticed this? Have you felt that, even doing everything right, studying, working, you still carry an unbearable emptiness, as if something essential is missing? Something is missing. and that something is the connection with the flow of life, with the Tao, something that cannot be forced, only experienced. But the mind conditioned by control rejects this truth. It fears the unknown and craves guarantees, creating suffocating routines and rigid goals to eliminate uncertainties. However, uncertainty is vital to life. It's part of the charm and magic of being alive. By trying to eliminate the unexpected, we also exclude the spontaneity and surprise that make life vibrant. Alan Watts warned, "The more we try to control life, the more we distance ourselves from it. It's like trying to keep the scent of a flower in a sealed vault. You keep the form, but lose the essence, resulting in an exhausting and artificial existence where everything needs managing like a machine, even your emotions, relationships, and dreams. Yet, there is a way out, a path to break these invisible chains, a way to live lightly, without abdicating responsibility but freeing oneself from the weight of illusory control." Now we'll delve into the practice of applying Wu-wei in everyday life amid the hustle of modern times, a scenario that demands speed, but secretly yearns for a fuller and more authentic presence. Prepare to understand that slowing down isn't weakness, but wisdom, and that acting with serenity can surprisingly take you further. Discussing Wu-wei theoretically is engaging and inspiring. But how do you incorporate it in a world demanding quickness? How to tune in with life's flow amid a barrage of demands, deadlines, and expectations? That's the real question. The answer isn't simple. It requires courage and, even more, a profound shift in perspective on what it means to act wisely and live well. Embodying Wu-wei in today's context doesn't mean discarding responsibilities and isolating oneself in an introspective quest. Many mistake this concept of non-effort with negligence or apathy. Wu-wei is related to action, but from a different place. A point of full awareness, alignment with reality and the possibilities of the moment, instead of an uncontrollable urgency for results not under your control. In practice, Wu-wei involves humility, recognizing there's no absolute control, that greater forces are always at play, and that true power is in listening to and working with them. It means slowing down, pausing, listening before acting, and abandoning impulsive responses out of fear of being left behind and following what truly matters. In daily life, Wu-wei is choosing depth over haste, excellence over quantity. It's recognizing that sometimes the best choice is to pause. It's the courage to refuse commitments that only feed an ego hungry for approval. It's listening to the internal whisper that has always been present but never acknowledged. Wu-wei also manifests in trusting life's natural cycles. There are times of growth and reflective pauses, but we live in a culture romanticizing constant growth, making us believe that not advancing is failing. Alan Watts reminds us that even winter has its role in the natural cycle, and that sometimes the greatest progress comes from allowing oneself to be fully where they are, without forcing the next step. Practicing Wu-wei in the modern world is, thus, an act of conscious resistance. It's navigating against the tide of reigning anxiety, not to win, but to stay true to oneself. It's challenging the ideology of scarcity telling us we never have enough and rediscovering the logic of natural abundance. Being, simply being, is already complete. Living this way requires a constant state of alertness, as old tendencies of control, urgency, and excess will always try to pull you back. There will be moments when the persistent voice in your mind will say you're falling behind, that you need to do more, achieve more, be more. And in those moments, you'll have the real opportunity to choose. Continue in the cycle of resistance or trust the flow of the Tao. That choice is, in essence, the beginning of a profound transformation. And it's about this transformation that we'll talk next. The moment when you finally stop forcing and everything in your life begins to change. Prepare to discover the power of conscious surrender. The point where, paradoxically, you find true freedom. A critical moment comes in your decisions. You keep forcing, fighting, and swimming against the current until body and spirit are exhausted, or you decide to let go. Understand that living isn't a battle to conquer, but a riddle to savor. Alan Watts affirmed that the paradox of true transformation isn't in forcing change, but in ceasing resistance to what's naturally unfolding. When you stop forcing, you create space. Space for life to surprise you. Space for new opportunities you could never have predicted. Space to reconnect with your intuition, your body, with the silent flow of the Tao, which has always been there to guide you, even when everything seemed hopeless. Genuine freedom isn't being able to do everything at any time. True freedom is being so aligned with life that your actions become natural extensions of what reality proposes. It's acting without fear, creating without pressure, loving without anxiety. It's ceasing to be an anxious controller of your own existence to consciously participate in the infinite dance of life. This, logically, requires practice. It demands internal vigilance and strength to face old patterns that, in moments of fear, will try to trap you again in fruitless struggles. But now you know you have the power to choose. So, before this video ends, I want to propose something to you. Pause and observe. What is the area of your life where you're forcing the most today? Where do you feel you are struggling against the current, fighting something that may just need to be accepted, understood, or simply let flow? Leave your comment below. Share with me and all of us on this journey your greatest battle at the moment. Sometimes, just recognizing this is already a significant step towards freedom. And if this message has touched something in you, if something inside you has been awakened, don't stop here. The next video is a vital continuation of this journey. It's not just more content. It's a crucial piece for you to understand even more deeply how to live with true awareness, lightness, and presence.